This is an ABC News special report. Crisis in Syria.
Hello, everyone. I'm George Stephanopoulos at ABC News headquarters in New York, and we're coming on the air right now because President Obama is about to speak in the Rose Garden about the crisis in Syria. It has been a day of stepped-up activity in Syria and the United States. We saw the UN inspectors who were searching for evidence of that chemical weapon strike leave Syria this morning, head to Lebanon. The head of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, has received an initial briefing on their findings, saying they were able to complete a wide range of activities, but it's going to take some time to analyze those findings. At the White House, it is all hands on deck. The Vice President is there, the President, Secretary of State John Kerry, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, all at the White House this morning. Members of Congress will be briefed this afternoon after the President speaks. But I'm here with Martha Raddatz here in New York. And Martha, the White House has said that this is not an announcement from the President of any imminent military operations or operations that have already begun. But if you look at what the President said yesterday, saying this is a challenge to the world, if you look at what Secretary Kerry said yesterday, calling this a crime against humanity, there is no question an attack is coming.
There is absolutely no question. There is no way the United States could walk this back and not carry out a military strike without losing an enormous amount of credibility and looking very weak, especially to Syria.
And the United States, Syria, all braced for this attack to come at some point. The President about to come into the Rose Garden right now, emphasizing that he knows Americans are weary of war, saying again yesterday that he is weary of war as well. Not a lot of support in the country right now for massive military operations in Syria. The President has said there will not be boots on the ground. This is not an open-ended military commitment. Most likely, Richard Clark, and we only have a few seconds here, that this is likely to be a barrage, 2 or 3 days of cruise missile strikes.
2 or 3 days to cause the Syrian regime to lose something that matters to them. The key here is to send a message to hurt them, and that probably takes 2 or 3 days of strikes.
But Martha, the President has ruled out any kind of strike that would lead to regime change in Syria.
He talks about just this limited strike to prevent and deter any more chemical weapons attacks. That's pretty much impossible to do, to prevent any chemical weapons attacks in the future, because you can't really go after the chemical weapons themselves, but they hope it deters it in some way.
And there was a blow to the President and the United States efforts when the British Parliament on Thursday, despite the support of David Cameron, the Prime Minister, said they would not support a military strike.
Not only a blow, a surprise blow. I think the United States was very surprised that the British did not support the U.S. action, and the United States so far will have to go it alone, although the French are talking about joining
And
in.
Richard Clark, the French have said, the French President Francois Hollande said that he would join, and perhaps one of the reasons that the United States might be taking a little more time is to get French help in place.
Well, the French airplanes have to get in place. They have cruise missiles they can launch. They could be part of this raid, but it may take a day or two for them to get to the NATO base in Turkey at Incirlik.
We know the President has been meeting in the Oval Office with Vice President Biden for the last several minutes, about the last half hour or so. Additionally, these statements were supposed to come at around 1:15. Members of Congress on hold waiting for their what are called declassified briefings as well. Both the Senate and the House will get those briefings by phone today from administration officials in person if they choose. Classified briefings in person tomorrow from White House officials in the Senate and the House, and already from at least one key member of the Senate, John Cornyn, a member of the Senate leadership, Republican Senate leadership, has now said that the President should not take any action before getting congressional authorization. He says President Obama should come back to the Congress for authorization before, and some sources saying the President is considering that right now. Here comes the President along with Vice President Biden.
Good afternoon, everybody. 10 days ago, the world watched in horror as men, women, and children were massacred in Syria in the worst chemical weapons attack of the 21st century. Yesterday, the United States presented a powerful case that the Syrian government was responsible for this attack on its own people. Our intelligence shows the Assad regime and its forces preparing to use chemical weapons, launching rockets in the highly populated suburbs of Damascus, and acknowledging that a chemical weapons attack took place. And all of this corroborates what the world can plainly see. Hospitals overflowing with victims, terrible images of the dead, All told, well over 1,000 people were murdered. Several hundred of them were children. Young girls and boys gassed to death by their own government. Now, this attack is an assault on human dignity. It also presents a serious danger to our national security. It risks making a mockery of the global prohibition on the use of chemical weapons. It endangers our friends and our partners along Syria's borders, including Israel, Jordan, Turkey, Lebanon, and Iraq. It could lead to escalating use of chemical weapons or their proliferation to terrorist groups who would do our people harm. In a world with many dangers, this menace must be confronted. Now, after careful deliberation, I have decided that the United States should take military action against Syrian regime targets. This would not be an open-ended intervention. We would not put boots on the ground. Instead, our action would be designed to be limited in duration and scope. But I'm confident we can hold the Assad regime accountable for their use of chemical weapons, deter this kind of behavior, and degrade their capacity to carry it out. Our military has positioned assets in the region. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs has informed me that we are prepared to strike whenever we choose. Moreover, the chairman has indicated to me that our capacity to execute this mission is not time sensitive. It will be effective tomorrow, or next week, or 1 month from now. And I'm prepared to give that order. But, having made my decision as Commander-in-Chief based on what I am convinced is our national security interests, I'm also mindful that I'm the president of the world's oldest constitutional democracy. I've long believed that our power is rooted not just in our military might, but in our example as a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's why I've made a second decision. I will seek authorization for the use of force from the American people's representatives in Congress. Over the last several days, we've heard from members of Congress who want their voices to be heard. I absolutely agree. So this morning I spoke with all 4 congressional leaders, and they've agreed to schedule a debate and then a vote as soon as Congress comes back into session. In the coming days, my administration stands ready to provide every member with the information they need to understand what happened in Syria and why it has such profound implications for America's national security. And all of us should be accountable as we move forward, and that can only be accomplished with a vote. I'm confident in the case our government has made without waiting for UN inspectors. I'm comfortable going forward without the approval of a United Nations Security Council that so far has been completely paralyzed and unwilling to hold Assad accountable. As a consequence, many people have advised against taking this decision to Congress. And undoubtedly they were impacted by what we saw happen in the United Kingdom this week when the parliament of our closest ally failed to pass a resolution with a similar goal, even as the Prime Minister supported taking action. Yet while I believe I have the authority to carry out this military action without specific congressional authorization, I know that the country will be stronger if we take this course, and our actions will be even more effective. We should have this debate because the issues are too big for business as usual. And this morning, John Boehner, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and Mitch McConnell agreed that this is the right thing to do for our democracy. A country faces few decisions as grave as using military force, even when that force is limited. I respect the views of those who call for caution, particularly as our country emerges from a time of war that I was elected in part to end. But if we really do want to turn away from taking appropriate action in the face of such an unspeakable outrage, then we must acknowledge the costs of doing nothing. Here's my question for every member of Congress and every member of the global community. What message will we send if a dictator can gas hundreds of children to death in plain sight and pay no price? What's the purpose of the international system that we've built if a prohibition on the use of chemical weapons that has been agreed to by the governments of 98% of the world's people and approved overwhelmingly by the Congress of the United States is not enforced? Make no mistake, this has implications beyond chemical warfare. If we won't enforce accountability in the face of this heinous act, what does it say about our resolve to stand up to others who flout fundamental international rules? To governments who would choose to build nuclear arms? To terrorists who would spread biological weapons? To armies who carry out genocide? We cannot raise our children in a world where we will not follow through on the things we say, the accords we sign, the values that define us. So just as I will take this case to Congress, I will also deliver this message to the world. While the UN investigation has some time to report on its findings, we will insist that an atrocity committed with chemical weapons is not simply investigated, it must be confronted. I don't expect every nation to agree with the decision we have made. Privately, we've heard many expressions of support from our friends, but I will ask those who care about the writ of the international community to stand publicly behind our action. And finally, let me say this to the American people. I know well that we are weary of war. We've ended one war in Iraq, we're ending another in Afghanistan, and the American people have the good sense to know we cannot resolve the underlying conflict in Syria with our military. In that part of the world, there are ancient sectarian differences, and the hopes of the Arab Spring have unleashed forces of change that are going to take many years to resolve. And that's why we're not contemplating putting our troops in the middle of someone else's war. Instead, we'll continue to support the Syrian people through our pressure on the Assad regime, our commitment to the opposition, our care for the displaced, and our pursuit of a political resolution that achieves a government that respects the dignity of its people. But we are the United States of America, and we cannot and must not turn a blind eye to what happened in Damascus. Out of the ashes of World War, we built an international order and enforced the rules that gave it meaning. And we did so because we believe that the rights of individuals to live in peace and dignity depends on the responsibilities of nations. We aren't perfect, but this nation, more than any other, has been willing to meet those responsibilities. So to all members of Congress, of both parties, I ask you to take this vote for our national security. I am looking forward to the debate. And in doing so, I ask you, members of Congress, to consider that some things are more important than partisan differences or the politics of the moment. Ultimately, this is not about who occupies this office at any given time. It's about who we are as a country. I believe that the people's representatives must be invested in what America does abroad. And now's the time to show the world that America keeps our commitments. We do what we say, and we lead with the belief that right makes might, not the other way around. We all know there are no easy options, but I wasn't elected to avoid hard decisions, and neither were the members of the House and the Senate. I've told you what I believe, that our security and our values demand that we cannot turn away from the massacre of countless civilians with chemical weapons. And our democracy is stronger when the President and the people's representatives stand together. I'm ready to act in the face of this outrage. Today, I'm asking Congress to send a message to the world that we are ready to move forward together as one nation. Thanks very much.
Will you forgo a strike if Congress disapproves?
Some headlines there from President Obama in the Rose Garden right now, saying in the wake of the worst chemical attack in the 21st century, he has decided to take military action against Syria, but also saying that he does not believe this action is time sensitive, that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has told him it could take place at any time over the next several weeks, which also opened the door for the president to say that he will go to Congress and seek authorization for this military action. I want to go straight to Jim Avila at the White House. Something of a surprise here from the president. He said he told members of Congress, the leadership of Congress, of this decision this morning.
Yes, George, this in fact is an historic change in presidential politics and sort of the arc of the way the presidents before him have chosen to do something like this. Presidents before him, the Bushes especially, have decided in the past they had the authority and went ahead and did it. This president is saying, I have the authority, but he's going to call the bluff of the Senate and the Congress, which have been asking for a vote. In fact, one of the ranking members of Congress, the senator from Texas, says today that there should be, tweeted just before the president spoke, that there should be a vote. And now the president is saying, okay, you want a vote? There's going to be one. I want you on my team. I want this to be more powerful. This is John Cornyn's tweet right here. Today I'm calling on President Obama to bring Congress back for a vote before any military action on Syria. So the president is saying, okay, you want that responsibility with me? You want to share that responsibility? Let's do it. This is what I believe. Now I want everybody on board.
And Martha Raddatz, the president also, as I said, citing Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, saying the president had the leeway, had the time it would take. But what is that? That seems difficult to imagine, that it's not going to give the Syrians, for example, opportunity to continue to protect their sites.
To move things around or to put them someplace else, and certainly give them even more time to prepare. What General Dempsey has done is given the president cover. I can imagine this conversation. General Dempsey, if I carry it out next week, is it as effective? He must have said yes. If I carry it out in a month, as the president said, he was told that it is just as effective. And we have waited a little while already, so perhaps it will be.
One other signal from the president, Richard Clarke, he said that this response would be to both to deter any further chemical attacks, but also to degrade the Syrian capability.
He told us by saying that he had made a decision between the two options that he was presented by the military. The military gave him one option, one strike plan, targets related to the chemical weapons units, and another one that takes out military targets of value. Could be the Defense Ministry, could be the entire Air Force. And what he said was today, hidden in that speech, I've made a decision. It's the bigger package. I'm going to make them pay for this. And that means a bigger strike and a longer lasting strike.
Let me talk to Colonel Stephen Ganyard about that, a decorated Marine Corps officer, veteran of several fighter missions, also a veteran of the State and Defense Departments. How does the military stay ready over a long period of time for an attack like that? And when you heard the president, what clues did that give you over what kind of an attack it might be?
George, the White House has been quite clear for all week that this attack would be carried out by Tomahawk missiles on Navy ships at sea. So these missiles are contained in sealed containers on these ships. We have 5 cruisers, destroyers, rather, Arleigh Burke destroyers out in the Mediterranean. They can be out there for months. The coordinates are programmed into these missiles, and it's literally and figuratively going to be a push-button strike if and when the president gets authorization from the Congress.
Okay, Stephen Ganyard, I want to go to Terry Moran in Beirut right now. The whole region has been braced for an imminent attack. Terry Moran, I wonder if you're getting any kind of reaction yet. I know it's going to be difficult, but any kind of reaction at night there to the idea that there might be some time before an attack?
Absolutely. There is a sense of surprise already. I can tell you that Syrian state television took this address live so that the people of Syria, at least those with electric power, whose televisions can work, heard the president. And throughout the region, much of which is rallying to the side of President Assad, President Obama's statement that he wants democracy to go forward, that the United States is about to have a grand debate, strikes them as a kind of cooling off period. But it could be a tremendous demonstration if the president gets authorization of the power of the United States democracy in this area. The problem out here right now is that the killing continues in Syria without question. Atrocities continue on both sides, and the people of Syria continue to suffer.
Okay, Terry Moran, thanks very much. Once again, some big headlines from President Obama. He has decided to take military action against Syria, but has also decided to go to Congress and seek authorization for that first. We're going to continue to cover this all day long on abcnews.com. Also, much more tomorrow on GMA and This Week. I'll see you then.
This has been a special report from ABC News.